The battlefield was silent. Smoke rose in thin lines from the broken metal and burned ground. The sky above was red from the fading light of the nearby planet. Pieces of ships and machines were scattered like bones. It looked like the end of something old and painful. Tomas stepped carefully over the wreckage. His armor was dirty and scratched. He had no orders now. The last command he heard was to fall back, but his unit was gone. He did not know if they had escaped or fallen. He kept moving anyway. He held his rifle low, ready but not aiming. His eyes scanned the ground. There was no movement, only the wind moved, carrying the smell of ash and melted steel. Then he saw it, a flicker of color under a broken wing of a crashed Ayari fighter. Something shimmered, not metal, not fire. Flesh. Tomas moved closer. His boots crunched on glass. He kept his rifle pointed down, but ready to lift. His heart beat slower than before. He had seen too much to be surprised now. Still, this was different. There, half covered in dust and smoke, was an Ayari girl. She was young, maybe his age, maybe younger. Her skin was pale silver, and her dark eyes watched him with fear. Her armor was cracked at the side. Blood, a soft blue color, marked the ground near her. She tried to move but winced. Her hand reached for something beside her. A broken blade. Tomas raised his hand, not to shoot, but to stop her. He didn't speak yet. She didn't either. They only stared at each other. Two enemies in the middle of silence. Her lips moved. She said something in her language. Tomas didn't understand, but he heard the tone. It was not a challenge. It was a question. He took one step closer. She pulled back with pain, her hand still near the broken weapon. He spoke slowly, knowing she might not understand. "I'm not here to fight," she blinked. Her breathing was shallow. She looked at his weapon, then at his hands. Tomas let the rifle hang on his shoulder. He reached behind his back and pulled out his medkit. It was small and marked with a red cross. The Ayari girl tensed, her eyes narrowed. He opened the kit and held up a bandage. Then he pointed to her side. The wound was bleeding slowly, not deep enough to kill quickly, but enough to weaken her. She looked at the bandage, then at him. She did not move. Tomas took a step closer, then another. He knelt beside her and slowly reached toward the wound. She flinched but didn't stop him. The skin round the wound was hot. He cleaned it with a cloth, then pressed the bandage on carefully. She let out a sharp breath but didn't cry out. He wrapped it gently. His hands were rough but steady. She watched his face the whole time. Her eyes were sharp, trying to read his thoughts. She didn't see anger. She saw something else. Something tired, maybe kindness. When he finished, Tomas sat back on his heels. She spoke again, softer this time. He still couldn't understand the words, but the tone was different, less afraid. He nodded once, then pointed to himself. Tomas. She stared at him, confused. He tapped his chest again. "Tomas, that's my name." She hesitated, then said a word slowly. "Riva." It was her name. Tomas repeated it carefully. "Riva." She gave a small nod. Her eyes stayed on his hands. She still didn't trust him fully, but she had stopped reaching for her weapon. The air grew colder. The wind picked up dust and ash. Night was coming fast on the moon. The light from the sky faded into a soft purple dot. Tomas stood and looked around. He saw the remains of a small shuttle not far from them. It looked damaged, but maybe the inside could block the wind. He looked down at Riva. She was too weak to walk far. He knelt again. "I'm going to move you. That shuttle might be safe." Riva didn't answer, but she didn't resist when he placed one arm behind her back and the other under her knees. He lifted her slowly. She was light, almost too light. Her body was cold. She winced in pain, but said nothing. Tomas carried her carefully across the battlefield. The ground was uneven. He stepped over fallen panels and sharp wires. The wind pulled at his coat. The shuttle's door was half open. He kicked it gently and it moved with a creak. Inside, it was dark but dry. He laid her down on a padded bench. Then he sat nearby and checked the medkit again. Only one heat patch left. He opened it and placed it near her side. Warmth spread slowly in the small space. Riva watched him again. her eyes softer now. Tomas leaned back against the wall and rested his head. They didn't speak. Outside, the wind howled across the broken land. Inside, a human and an alien shared silence. They had been enemies. Now they were just survivors. The night passed slowly on the ruined moon. Wind pushed against the walls of the broken shuttle. Loose metal rattled now and then, but nothing tried to enter. It was a cold place, dark and still, like the moon had forgotten how to live. Inside the shuttle, Tomas sat with his back against the wall. His eyes stayed half open, watching the Ayari girl across from him. Her name was Riva. She was lying on a padded bench, wrapped in part of his coat, the heat patch still glowing faintly near her wound. She had fallen asleep for a little while, but her body moved now. She was waking up again. Riva blinked slowly. Her silver eyes scanned the room, then landed on Tomas. She looked confused for a second, then remembered where she was. She touched her side gently and winced. Tomas spoke in a calm voice. "You're safe." Riva didn't answer at first. She sat up slowly and leaned back against the wall. She looked at the bandage. It was clean and tight. She looked at Tomas again. Her voice was soft and rough. "Why?" Tomas leaned forward, resting his arms on his knees. "Because you were hurt, and you didn't try to kill me." Riva tilted her head. Her thin fingers rested on the edge of the bench. Her body was weak, but her eyes were sharp. "We are enemies," she said, each word slow, like she was still practicing his language. "Yes," Tomas answered, "but not here. Not now." She watched him for a long moment, then looked down at the bandage again. "You helped me," she said, "even though I am Ayari." Tomas nodded. His voice was quiet. "I saw a person who needed help. That's all." Riva closed her eyes for a few seconds. She had never been this close to a human before. In training, they were called dangerous, cold, strong but cruel, machines of faces. But this one had warm hands and tired eyes. She touched the cloth he had wrapped around her side. The pain had lessened. She still felt weak, but no longer fading. Tomas stood and looked around the inside of the shuttle. Most of the equipment had been broken, but he found a small case behind a seat. Inside it were two ration bars, sealed in dark gray plastic. He opened one and offered it to Riva. She looked at it with suspicion. "It's food." Sage took it slowly, broke off a small piece, and tasted it. Her face twisted. It was dry and plain, but not poison. She ate the rest in small bites. Tomas ate the other one without complaint. He had tasted worse in the early months of war. After they ate, the silence returned. It was not tense anymore, just quiet. Riva leaned her head back and looked at the ceiling. The lights above flickered now and then. She spoke again. "I thought you came to finish me." Tomas looked up from where he was cleaning his gloves. "I know," he said. "You looked afraid." "I was ready to die," Riva said, her voice calm but distant. "But you put down your weapon." "No soldier from my world would do that for a human." "Maybe that's the problem," Tomas replied. "We were taught to hate each other before we ever met." Riva didn't answer. Her eyes stayed on the ceiling. "What was your mission?" Tomas asked after a moment. "Protect the North Ridge," she replied. "Wait for the human drop ships and push them back." "That was the order." He nodded slowly. "And your team?" "Gone," she said simply. "One by one." "I ran. Got hit by a blast near the fighter." Everything after that was pain and fire. Tomas looked down. He had seen his own team fall too. Friends he had trained with, laughed with. Gone. And second sighed and leaned back. "I don't know who started the war," he said, "but I don't think they care about people like us anymore." Riva looked at him, her face unreadable. "Maybe they never did," she said. They sat in silence again. Outside, the wind began to calm. The moonlight slipped through a crack in the shuttle's wall, casting a soft glow on the floor. Riva broke the silence this time. "What is your home like?" Tomas smiled a little. The question surprised him. "There are trees, real ones, not grown, in tubes, tall and green, and rivers where the water is cold and moves fast in spring. The air smells like flowers and dust." Riva listened closely. She had never seen Earth. Her home was made of tall white towers and sky platforms. Gardens floated in the air, fed by light and sound. It was quiet and clean, beautiful in its own way, but it didn't have rivers or forests. "I want to see Your world, she said. Thomas looked at her. You still might, he said, if we survive this. She gave a small nod. What about your people, she asked. Will they believe you helped me? He didn't answer right away. I don't know, he said finally, but I couldn't leave you there. I wouldn't have slept well if I did. Riva closed her eyes again. You are strange for a human. You're quiet for a soldier. They both smiled slightly. It was not a full smile, but it was real. Night stretched on. Tomas checked the emergency beacon once more, still broken. He would try to fix it in the morning. Griva slowly lay down again. Her body still needed rest before she closed her eyes. She said one last thing. Thank you, Tomas. He looked over at her. You're welcome, Riva. As she drifted into sleep, Tomas stayed awake, keeping watch. The war had not ended. The world was still dangerous, but in that small broken shuttle, there was something new. Not peace, not trust, but a beginning. Morning on the moon was not bright. The sky turned from dark purple to dull gray. The smoke from old fires still hung in the air. Pieces of broken ships lay quiet under a soft wind. Nothing moved outside except drifting ash dot inside the shuttle. Tomas was awake. He sat near the door, watching the world through a crack. He had not slept much. His body was tired, but his mind stayed alert. This moon had no mercy for those who let their guard fall. Behind him, Riva stirred. She moved slowly, as if her body had forgotten how to work. Her wound was still painful, but less than before. The bandage Tomas had placed was strong and clean. She opened her eyes and looked around. The small space of the shuttle was cold, but it felt safer than the battlefield. Tomas turned toward her. How do you feel? Riva sat up and pressed a hand to her side. Weak, but alive. He gave a small nod. That was enough for now. Tomas opened a box. Near the wall, he found a half-working light panel and placed it near her. The glow was soft but warm. He looked at her again. We should find more supplies. Water. Maybe something to fix the beacon. Riva nodded slowly. I can walk. Not far. But I can move. Tomas stood and offered his hand. She looked at it for a second, then took it. Her grip was light but steady. They stepped outside together. The cold air hit them first. Tomas pulled his coat tighter. Riva held her arms close to her chest. Her armor was cracked and gave little protection now. They moved slowly across the field of wreckage. Tomas knew the area from the battle map. There had been a supply drop zone not far from where they were. If anything remained, it might help them. As they walked, Riva looked around. Her eyes took in the broken machines, the burned flags, and the silence. So many lives lost. And yet, here she was, walking beside the one person she had been taught to fear. She glanced at Tomas. He walked with focus, scanning the ground. His hand stayed near his weapon, but not on it. He did not treat her like a prisoner. He did not treat her like a threat. After some time, they found a collapsed hill where pieces of a cargo pod lay scattered. Tomas checked the box closest to him. It was bent, but still sealed. He pried it open with a metal rod. Inside were small packets of water into repair kits. One was broken, but the other looked usable. Perfect, he said. Riva opened another box nearby. It had energy cells and a working light drone. She held it up. This still works. Tomas took it and turned it on. The drone floated and gave off a soft hum. It followed them back to the shuttle, lighting the path. They returned just before the wind picked up again. Inside the shuttle, Tomas set the supplies near the wall and opened a water packet. He handed one to Riva. She drank it slowly. It had no taste, but her body welcomed the warmth. Tomas worked on the beacon while Riva rested. He opened the broken panel and used the tools from the kit to repair the wires. It was slow work. The parts were old and damaged. Riva watched him work. She had seen human tools before, but never so close. His hands moved with care. Not rushed, not angry. Just steady. After a while, Tomas spoke without looking up. You were trained to kill humans. Riva answered without hesitation. Yes, he nodded, and now Riva looked at her hands. I don't know. I thought all humans wanted to destroy us, but you helped me. That doesn't fit what I was told. Tomas tightened a wire and tested the signal. The light blinked once, then again. I was told the same about your people. He said that you were cruel and cold. But you're not. Riva gave a small smile. Maybe we were both lied to, maybe, Tomas said. Or maybe people just believe what makes war easier. The drone floated above them, casting a soft light on the floor. Outside, the wind blew stronger, shaking the walls slightly. Tomas leaned back and sighed. The beacon might work now. I set it to send a low signal every hour. Riva looked at him. Will your people come? Maybe, he said, but they might not be the first ones to hear it. She nodded slowly. And if mine come first? Tomas looked at her, his eyes calm. Then I'll speak. For you don't deserve to die for surviving. Riva held his gaze for a moment, then looked away. You are strange, he smiled. That's what you said before, and I still mean it, she replied. They sat in silence for a while. The tension between them was softer now, not gone, but quiet. Riva looked around the shuttle. This place, it's broken, but still standing. Like us, Tomas H. gave a soft laugh. Yes, like us. They ate another ration bar later, still dry, still bland, but better than nothing. As night came again, the wind outside grew stronger. The walls of the shuttle creaked, but held. Tomas checked the beacon one more time. The light was steady. He turned to Riva. Get some rest. I'll take first watch. Riva looked at him. You need sleep too. I will. Later. She lay back down, her head resting on her arm. Her breathing slowed. Tomas sat near the door again, watching the outside through the small crack. The storm outside made it hard to see far, but he stayed alert. He thought about home, about trees and rivers, about peace. He wondered if Riva's world had stories. He wondered if one day they would tell this one, a human soldier and an alien girl, not killing, not running, just helping each other stay alive on a cold moon, inside a broken shuttle. To enemies shared warmth, and for one more night, they both survived. The storm outside had not stopped. Wind pushed hard against the shuttle. Sharp dust tapped the metal walls like fingers knocking from the outside. Inside, the air was dry and cold, but the small light drone above kept a soft glow round Tomas and Riva. Tomas sat with his back against the wall. He was wrapping a broken strap on his armor with wire. Across from him, Riva sat cross-legged, arms resting on her knees. Her side still hurt, but the pain had faded enough for her to move more freely for a while. They didn't speak. There were no footsteps outside, no aircraft overhead, no commands on the radio. Only the storm and the small sounds of two people, trapped in the same place. Then Riva broke the silence. Do all human soldiers carry tools like those? Tomas looked up from his work and gave a short smile. Most do. It helps when you're far from command and something breaks, which is often. Riva nodded and looked at her own broken armor. I never learned how to fix mine. The tech unit always did it for us. Maybe that's the difference. Tomas said we were taught to fight, survive, and fix our own mess. You were taught to be alone, she said quietly. I looked at her, thoughtful. Sometimes, not always. I had a team, good people. We watched each other's backs until the drop went wrong. Riva looked down. She did not ask what happened. She didn't need to. You miss them, she said instead. Yes, Tomas replied. They sat in silence again. This time it was softer, not empty, just calm. Riva looked at the light above them. Tell me something about your world. Something not about war. Tomas leaned back and thought for a moment. There's a place on Earth called Valen Fields. It's full of tall green grass in spring. The wind moves across it and makes the grass look like waves in the ocean. There are no cities nearby, just the sky, the fields, and the sound of birds. Riva closed her eyes and pictured it. That sounds peaceful. It is. Tomas said, I used to go there with my sister. We would lie in the grass and talk for hours about nothing, just life. Riva opened her eyes and smiled slightly. I have never seen grass, only floating gardens. Our plants grow on glass platforms and use skylight to survive. No dirt, no rivers. But they are beautiful in their own way, quiet, clean. Do you miss it? Tomas asked. Yes. I did not think I would, but now I do. She looked at him. Your sister, where is she now? Safe, I hope. Tomas answered. She was sent to a city when the war reached the southern lands. I haven't heard from her in months. I hope she is still near the fields. Riva said. Tomas gave a slow nod. Me to Riva leaned back and looked up again. My brother trained me. He was older, strong, smart. He said I should never stop learning. Even in war, he taught me how to move through light, how to listen to machines, how to stay calm in noise. Was he a soldier too? Yes. He flew a skycutter, fastest ship in the fleet. He was lost over Uran Pass. Tomas didn't speak. He only looked at her. She held her voice steady, but there was something heavy in it, sometimes. I think I see him in dreams, she said, still flying. Still smiling. That's a good dream, Tomas said gently. They were quiet again, but it no longer felt cold. After some time, Riva asked, why do you stay awake so much? You barely sleep. Tomas gave a tired smile. I've learned that trouble comes when you close your eyes for too long, and someone has to keep watch. Riva shifted slightly and looked toward the door. I can take the next watch. You're still healing, he said. I'm not broken, she replied. He studied her face for a moment, then nodded once. Wake me if you hear anything strange. I will, she said. Tomas closed his eyes, though he did not fall asleep right away. His body needed rest, but his mind still walked through the noise of old battles and lost friends. Riva stayed alert, sitting near the wall, her ears open to every sound. The wind outside began to slow. The storm was passing. After some time, she looked down at Tomas. His face looked calm now, peaceful, even in sleep. He did not look like a soldier. He looked like a person, just like anyone else. She thought of all the things she had believed before, the stories about humans, the warnings, the fear. But here, now, nothing matched those stories. This man had saved her life, shared his food, and listened to her speak. Riva reached for the small device beside her. It was a memory crystal. She tapped it gently and began recording. This is Riva of the Ayari. I am alive. I was found by a human soldier named Tomas. He did not harm me. He gave me shelter, food, a bandage. He is not like the stories. If anyone hears this, know that not all enemies are enemies forever. She saved the message and placed the crystal back into her pouch. The shuttle creaked as the wind faded. Outside, the dust settled. The sky began to shift to early morning light again. Tomas stirred and opened his eyes. He saw Riva awake and alert. He gave her a short nod. Quiet night. Yes, she said. Sat up and stretched his arms, then looked at the beacon, still blinking. Maybe today someone hears us, he said. Maybe, Riva replied, but if not, Tomas said as he stood, we keep going. Together. Riva stood as well. Her steps were slow, but stronger than before. Together, she said again. He looked at the door. The world outside was still broken, but for the first time since they met, the air felt lighter. The silence between them was no longer filled with fear, it was filled with hope. The sky was still gray when Tomas stepped outside the shuttle. The wind had calmed, and the dust no longer danced across the broken land. The silence was deep, but different from before. Something felt close. Not danger, but not peace either. Riva followed him slowly. She wore a piece of cloth around her shoulders like a scarf. Her armor was to damage now, and the cold still touched her skin. But her steps were stronger, and her eyes more focused. Tomas stopped on a high piece of broken metal and scanned the distance. With his scope, there was nothing but ruined machines, burnt flags, and pieces of both sides scattered like memories. Riva looked up at the sky. Do you think the signal worked? I hope so, Tomas said. It's been over a day. Someone should have heard it by now. Riva stepped beside him. What happens if both sides come at the same time? Tomas didn't answer right away. He looked down at the rifle in his hand. It was old now, scratched and dusty, still working, but silent since the day he found Riva. Then we see what kind of people they are, he said. He returned to the shuttle, ate a small meal, and rested. The beacon blinked once every hour, sending out the same short signal over and over. The same message: survivors alive, require extraction, human and Ayari, simple, honest, risky. Tomas knew that message could bring help or trouble. Later that day, as the sky darkened again, Tomas heard something, a soft humming sound far in the distance. He stepped outside and looked up. A small scout drone floated across the sky, blinking red as it passed over the wreckage. It was a human drone, military type. It scanned the ground below as it moved slowly forward. Riva saw it too. She stepped back into the shadows of the shuttle. Eyes wide, it's scanning. Tomas nodded. He stepped away from her, moving into the open. Tomas, Riva said quickly, "What are you doing?" He didn't answer. He raised his arm and waved at the drone. It stopped in the air, hovered, and turned toward him. Tomas stood still. His heart beat fast, but his face stayed calm. Then, slowly, the drone turned away and continued its scan. Tomas walked back inside. Riva stared at him. "Why did you do that?" "They could have marked you as a target. I had to let them see me. If they saw both of us, they might think you captured me, or that I captured you, and now they know I'm alive. A human soldier. Not hiding. Not afraid." Riva sat down, her hands tight on her knees. "And if your people come, what will they do with me?" Tomas sat beside her. "I don't know, but I'll stand in front of you if I have to." Riva looked at him, unsure what to say. "You would protect me against your own?" "Yes. Because I know you. You're not an enemy anymore. You're a person. You're Riva." She looked away for a moment, then whispered, "Thank you." That night, the air was still. The wind had stopped completely. The broken world outside seemed frozen in time. Inside the shuttle, Tomas cleaned his gear. Riva worked on her data crystal, typing a quiet message in her language. Tomas looked at her. "What are you writing?" "My record," she replied, "in case I don't return. I want someone to know what happened here." "Good idea." She paused, then looked at him. "Will you record yours too?" Tomas nodded. He pulled out a small recorder from his pouch. He spoke clearly. "This is Tomas, human soldier. I was part of the 5th drop team. Our unit was lost during the battle. I found an AR survivor. Her name is Riva. She was hurt. I helped her. We have stayed together since. She did not attack me. I did not harm her. We helped each other. If anyone finds this, please know we chose peace." He saved the message and looked up. Riva gave a slow nod. "You said it well." The next morning came with soft light in the sky. Tomas and Riva stood outside the shuttle, watching the horizon. Then they saw it, a shape in the air, moving fast, low and silent. It was a ship, small, light gray, AR design. Riva's breath caught in her throat. "They're here." Tomas stepped forward, placing himself slightly in front of her. Without thinking, the ship slowed and hovered above the field. It didn't fire. It didn't open its doors. It just waited. Riva stepped beside Tomas. "They might not believe us." Tomas looked at her. "Then we make them believe. We stand together." He raised his hand slowly, showing no weapons. Riva did the same. The ship landed gently. The door opened with a hiss. 3 AR soldiers stepped out, armor glowing softly. Their weapons were ready, but not aimed. One of them spoke in their language. Riva answered quickly, her voice steady. They looked at Tomas, then back at her. More words were exchanged. Then Riva held up her data crystal and placed it in the reader the soldier offered. The lead soldier nodded once, then stepped back. Riva turned to Tomas. "They heard the beacon? They saw the message. They came for me. They will not harm you." I made sure. Tomas gave a slow breath of relief. "You're going with them?" "Yes," she said. They stood in silence. Riva looked at the ground. "I don't want to leave without knowing if you'll be safe." "I'll be fine," Tomas said. "Now that I know you are." She stepped closer and held out her hand. Tomas took it. "You changed something in me," she said. "You changed something in me too." Tomas replied. They let go, and Riva turned toward her people. As she stepped into the ship, she looked back once. Tomas raised his hand. She did the same. Then the door closed, and the ship rose into the sky. Tomas stood alone once more on the broken moon, but the silence now felt different. He turned toward the shuttle and walked back inside. There was still war out there. But here, in this small corner of the galaxy, peace had begun. Tomas sat alone inside the broken shuttle. The walls around him no longer shook with wind. The air was quiet, still, and heavy. Riva was gone. She had left with her people 2 days ago. Her ship had vanished into the sky like a fading memory. He had stayed behind, not because he had to, but because no one had come for him yet. He kept the beacon running. Every hour it blinked, sending the same signal out into space. He didn't know who would come or when. He only knew he had to wait. He spent his time fixing what he could, cleaning tools, sorting supplies, watching the sky. Sometimes. He replayed Riva's voice on the small recorder she left behind. Her message was short, but it reminded him that what they shared had been real. He listened to it again that morning. Her voice soft and clear. Tomas chose not to be an enemy. He helped me live. If you find this, know that peace is possible even in a place built for war. He closed the recorder and stared at the metal wall. Later that day, while checking the perimeter around the shuttle, Tomas heard something strange. A deep humming noise came from above. He looked up and saw another ship, dark gray and wide, flying low and fast. Human design. Tomas stepped into the open and waved his arms. The ship circled once, then slowed. It hovered for a moment before lowering to the ground. Dust rose as the ship landed. Tomas stood still, his arms at his sides. The door opened, and 3 human soldiers stepped out. Their suits were clean, their rifles ready. One of them pointed at Tomas. Identify yourself. He raised his hand and spoke loud and clear. Tomas, 5th Drop Unit. Lost during the South Ridge mission. Beacon sent from this location. Survivor. The lead soldier walked closer. His eyes scanned Tomas from head to toe. Where's your team gone? Tomas said. I was the only one left. The soldier looked at the beacon, then at the broken shuttle. You've been here this whole time. Yes. The soldier stepped closer. You weren't alone. Tomas stayed still. No. There was an AR survivor. I found her. She was wounded. I helped her. She's gone now. Her people came for her. The soldiers looked at each other. One of them raised an eyebrow. You helped an enemy. She wasn't an enemy anymore. Tomas said calmly. Silence followed. The lead soldier looked at him for a long time, then lowered his rifle. Get on the ship. Command will want to speak with you. Tomas nodded. He didn't argue. He picked up his bag, looked once more at the shuttle, then followed them inside. The ship took off quickly. The sky grew smaller behind them. Inside, Tomas sat on a bench. The soldiers stayed quiet, watching him now and then. He knew they didn't understand. He didn't expect them to. Hours later, Tomas stood inside a clean room with bright lights. A man in uniform sat across from him at a metal table. The room was cold and silent. State your full report. The officer said. Tomas gave it all. From the crash of the battle, finding Riva, saving her, sharing food, fixing the beacon, and letting her go. When he finished, the officer stared at him. You helped the enemy. Do you know what that means? She wasn't a threat. She was injured, unarmed. I couldn't leave her to die. The officer stood and walked to the window. There'll be a full review. Some won't like what you did. I didn't do it for them. Tomas said. I did it because it was right. The officer turned back to him. Would you do it again? Yes. Silence filled the room again, but this time it was different. The officer gave a small nod. You'll be moved to a rest station. For now, you're free to recover. Tomas stood slowly. He had expected worse. But maybe, just maybe, the world was beginning to shift. The rest station was quiet. A place far from battlefields, full of trees, walking paths, and quiet rooms. Tomas stayed there for many days. He walked alone most of the time, thinking about the moon, the shuttle, and Riva. Sometimes he sat under a tree and stared at the sky. It reminded him of the old grass fields back home. One morning, a message came. It was short and clear. AR Fleet requests a single meeting with the human survivor named Tomas. One time only, voluntary. He stared at the message for a while, then replied with one word. Accepted. The meeting took place at a neutral station, far above any world. Clean halls, white lights, guards from both sides, no weapons. Tomas entered the room and stopped. She was there. Riva stood at the far side, dressed in a soft blue coat with a mark on her shoulder, one he didn't recognize. But guess was new, a sign of peace. They looked at each other for a moment. Then she smiled. You look different, so do you? They stepped closer. I wasn't sure if I would see you again, Riva said. I hoped I would. She reached into her coat and pulled out the recorder. I listened to your message more than once. Tomas smiled. I listened to yours too. They stood in silence for a moment. This time, it felt warm. Riva spoke softly. There are people now on both sides who are talking about something new. Not more war, but something better. Peace, maybe. She said. It's not easy, but it starts with stories like ours. Tomas nodded. Then I'm glad we told them. They sat and talked for hours. About home, about the shuttle, about what came next. No one rushed them. No one interrupted. When it was time to go, they stood near the window and looked out at the stars. Riva turned to him. Whatever happens next, I'll remember you, and I'll remember you. They said goodbye. Not with sadness, but with quiet respect. Tomas walked out of the room with a calm heart. Riva watched him go, then turned back to the stars. Peace did not come quickly, but the story of the human who bandaged an alien's wound instead of finishing her spread across ships, stations, and command halls. Some laughed at it, some ignored it, but others listened. And in time, they began to believe. The war did not end in a single day or with one meeting, but something had changed. The story of Tomas and Riva spread slowly. It moved through quiet voices at command tables, through messages shared between ships, and in quiet rooms where tired soldiers sat and listened. Many still fought. Many still believed only in victory. But others began to ask questions. They remembered the story, a human and an Ayari, not killing each other, not running, just surviving together. Tomas stayed on Earth for some time. He lived near the quiet hills outside the cities. He didn't return to battle. He didn't wear armor anymore. People came to ask about the moon, the shuttle, and the girl he saved. He told them the truth. Riva had survived. He had helped her. They had chosen peace for just a little while. Most people listened. Some believed, some didn't. But Tomas didn't argue. He only shared what happened and let others decide what it meant. One evening, Tomas sat under a tall tree near his home. The sky above was clear. The stars were bright, scattered across the dark like tiny ships. He held a letter in his hand. It was printed on smooth silver paper and marked with a small blue symbol, the same one he had seen on Riva's coat. During their last meeting, the letter read, Ayari delegation invites Tomas, former soldier, to attend the first shared summit on neutral ground. This event marks the first official talk for cooperation between both sides. Your presence is requested, not as a fighter, but as a symbol of what is possible. Tomas read the words again. He folded the paper carefully and stood. The night was cool, and the wind soft on his face. He knew what he had to do. The summit took place on a large station built in the space between both territories. It was not owned by either side. Clean, wide halls stretched through the station. Flags of both worlds hung side by side. No weapons were allowed, only words. Tomas walked through the station slowly, taking in every detail. There were humans and Ayari walking together. Some looked unsure. Others nodded at each other with calm respect. Small steps, but real. He reached the main chamber where the summit was being held. The large round hall had seats in circles, screens on the walls, and light panels that changed color slowly. At the far side of the room, she stood. Reva. She was dressed in a long white coat with silver patterns. Her hair was tied back, and a small light badge blinked softly on her chest. She looked calm, strong, and different from the soldier he once found in the dust. She turned and saw him. Their eyes met across the room. She smiled and walked toward him. You came, she said. I couldn't stay away, Tomas replied. They stood together in the center of the hall. Riva looked around. When I was younger, I never thought I'd see this day. Neither did I, Tomas. Sage looked at him. But I hoped after the moon, after the shuttle, I hoped something good could grow from it. It did, Tomas said softly. Riva nodded. We will speak later today. You and I, the council asked us to share our story together. As the star of the summit, Tomas raised his eyebrows. Both of us on stage. Yes, she smiled. They want to hear the truth from the ones who lived it. Tomas looked around at the large room filled with quiet voices and careful movements. Do you think it will work? Riva was silent for a moment. Then she said, I think some hearts will open, and that is enough to begin. They walked together to the stage. When the time came, the lights dimmed. The room grew silent. A voice called out, today, we begin something new. Not with generals, not with commands, but with two people, a human and an Ayari, survivors. Not of just war, but of fear. Please welcome Tomas and Riva. They stood under the lights. Tomas took a breath. His voice was calm. I was taught to fight, to follow orders. I was told the Ayari were a threat, cold, cruel. But then I met Riva, and she was none of those things. She was hurt. She was afraid. And she was brave. He looked at her. I didn't save her because of rule. I did it because I saw a person, not an enemy. And that choice changed me. Riva stepped forward. I to believe in the stories that humans were nothing but fire and noise. But Tomas showed me another side. He saw me, helped me, and stood between me and danger. I lived because of his kindness. And I believe peace was possible because of his heart. The room stayed quiet. Tomas and Riva stepped back. Then, one by one, hands clapped. First from a few, then more. Soon, the hall echoed with soft applause. They had spoken simply, but the truth needed no decoration. Later that day, Tomas and Riva walked through the quiet part of the station. They passed a room with young students from both species drawing on shared screens. Riva paused. Do you see that? Tomas looked inside. A young human boy drew a starship beside an Ayari girl. Drawing a garden, they smiled at each other as they worked. I see it, he said. Riva turned to him. I don't know what the future holds, but if it begins with things like this, then maybe we will be fine, maybe better than fine. Tomas said. He stood by the window. The stars outside shone bright. Ships moved across the sky, slow and silent. Peace was still new, still fragile, but it was real, and it had started with one choice on a broken moon. Tomas looked at Riva. I'm glad I didn't pull the trigger that day. She smiled. I'm glad you chose the bandage instead. They stood side by side. No longer enemies. Not just survivors, but the beginning of something greater. And far above the war-torn worlds below, a soldier and an alien girl watched the stars together.